Hi guys, so today we're going to cover the word problems from the quadratic unit for unit 8. Okay, so let's start. We're just going to work some examples together. Okay, so it says given the diagram below, find the value of x. So I'm looking for the value of x if the area of the rectangle is 78. So the way I find area, remember that's base times height or length times width, whichever way you want to think about it. Okay, which means that, okay, we're going to say this is the width, this is the length, or the base and the height, and I'm going to multiply, and it says that the area is 78. So that means I'm going to have x times x plus 7 equals 78. And now we solve. So I'm going to have to distribute the x. And that's going to give me x squared plus 7x equals 78. We are going to move the 78 over here. So I'm going to subtract 78 from both sides. And I'm going to get x squared plus 7x equals, oops. Hold up, Kimberly. Minus 78 equals 0. And now we've got a factor. So I'm going to have negative 78 is the product, 7 as the sum. So I need to find two numbers when multiplied equals 78, but add to equal 7. So I go to my calculator. I put in the y equals because I do not know the factors of 78. So I'm going to do 78 divided by x. And then I'm going to go to my table of values. And I'm going to look to see when I add which ones are going to give me 7. So if I scroll down, I can see the 13 and the 6. If I subtract them, would give me 7. So my factors are going to be 13 and negative 6, because that's the only way I would get subtraction. So because that a here is 1, I know I can directly go x plus 13 times x minus 6 equals 0. And then we set each factor equal to 0. So I'm going to have x plus 13 equals 0. So that's going to give me x equals negative 13. And x minus 6 equals 0, which is going to give me x equals 6. Now, here's where we have to think about what makes sense for the problem. Can we have a negative measurement? No. So this answer choice is out. My only possibility for the value of x is 6, because it's the only one that makes sense. Okay, moving right along. Excuse me. Next page. Okay, looking at number 7. We have a square is altered so that one dimension is increased. So we've got a square so that one dimension is increased by 5 inches and the other dimension is decreased by 2 inches. If the area of the resulting rectangle is 98, find the area of the original square. Okay, so that means we've got several parts going on here. So the first thing I'm going to do is let x equal the square side. Okay, and then I'm going to have x plus 5 equals, let's say, the length, x minus 2 equals with the width, which are the sides of the rectangle. Okay, so now I gotta work this. So we're gonna have, remember that area is found by doing length times width. So therefore, I'm going to have x plus 5 times x minus 2 equals 98. So I'm going to have x squared plus 5x minus 2x minus 10 equals 98. Now, the same time that I combine these like terms, I'm going to move the 98. So I'm going to subtract 98 from both sides, and I'm going to get x squared plus 3x minus 108 equals 0. So we do the same thing. We do our product sum box, and we need negative 108 and 3. And those factors are going to be 12 and negative 9. So we end up with, excuse me, x plus 12 times x minus 9 equals 0. And then we have, okay, this means x equals negative 12, x equals 9. But again, excuse me, I can't have a negative measurement. So this one is out. So I'm just going to be using the x equals 9. Okay, so it wants me to find the area of the square. So my final answer, we've got to remember that area is length times width. So that means for the square, I'm doing 9 squared, which is area equals 81 inches squared. Okay. Next example. We've done problems like this. Given the diagram to the left, if the area of the shaded region is 59, we've talked about shaded region problems, square inches, what are the dimensions of the outside rectangle? Okay, so that means I'm looking for the length and the width of the outside. So once I find x, I plug it in. Okay, so I'm given that the shaded region, remember to do the shaded region, that means I'm going to do the big minus the small equals the shaded. Okay, here we go. So the big is going to be x plus 6 times 2x minus 1 minus x times x plus 3 equals 59. And now we simplify the left-hand side. So I'm going to FOIL or distribute here, and I'm going to end up with 2x squared, excuse me, minus 11x minus 6 minus x squared minus 3x, and this is 12x minus 1x, which gives me the 11x, equals 59. Okay, so now I'm going to combine my like terms. And at the same time, I'm going to bring the 59 over. And I end up with x squared. Oh, this is supposed to be a plus 11x. Okay, x squared plus 8x minus 65 equals 0. And now we factor. So I have negative 65 and 8. So that's going to give me 13 and negative 5. So I'm going to have x plus 13 times x minus 5 equals 0. Which means I'm going to end up with x equals negative 13 and x equals 5. Well, again, we can't have a negative measurement. So therefore, this one is out. So x equals 5. But that's not my answer. It wants me to find the actual dimensions. So I have to take the 5 and plug it in here and here. So that means I'm going to have 5 plus 6, which gives me 11. And I'm going to have 2 times 5 minus 1. So that's 10 minus 1, which gives me 9. So my dimensions are 11 inches, comma, 9 inches. Okay. Moving right along. I know this is going to be a long video, but I'm kind of trying to hit and give you exposure to several different things. Okay. All right. Number 11, find two positive consecutive odd integers. Okay. That would be numbers like 3, 5, 7. Those are consecutive odd integers. But the problem is we don't know what those are. So we're going to say that the first odd is going to be x. The second, and this is consecutive odd, the second consecutive odd, well, how much do I go from 3 to 5? Plus 2. So, because remember, this is the first, this is the second, and this one's the third. To go from the first to the second, I'm adding 2. So my second consecutive odd is going to be x plus 2. Now, we go on and we continue to read. It says, such that the square of the first added to 3 times the second is 24. So I'm going to take that exact square of the first. So that's going to be x squared added to 3 times the second. Well, my second one is x plus 2. So I'm going to have 3 open parentheses, x plus 2 equals 24. And now we simplify and solve. So I'm going to have x squared plus 3x plus 6 equals 24. And now I'm going to subtract 24 from each side, and I get x squared plus 3x minus 18 equals 0. And now we factor. I'm going to have negative 18 and 3. So that's going to be 6 and negative 3. So we end up with x plus 6 and x minus 3 equals 0. Okay, so my answers are going to be here. X equals negative 6 and x equals a positive 3. Now, in my question, it says two positive consecutive odd integers. This one ain't positive. That one's out. So therefore, the first odd is 3. The second is 3 plus 2 equals 5. So my answers are 3, 5. All right. Looking at 12. Find 3 positive consecutive integers. So that means they're just one after another, like 1, 2, 3. But I don't know what they are. So we're gonna let x equal the first consecutive, and remember we're talking about positive here, consecutive positive. So to go from 1 to 2 is plus 1. So this is going to be x plus 1 equals the second. And then to go from the first to the third term, that's plus 2. So it's going to be x plus 2 equals the third term. And now we read the rest, such that the product of the second integer and the third integer is 72. So the product of the second and third. So that means I'm doing the second times the third equals 72. So I'm going to have x plus 1 times x plus 2 equals 72. Oh, we simplify and go. So I'm going to have x squared plus 3x plus 2 equals 72. Subtract 72 from both sides, and I get x squared plus 3x minus 70 equals 0. Now we factor. I have negative 70 and 3, so that's going to be 10 and negative 7. So I'm going to have x plus 10 times x minus 7 equals 0. Second parentheses there. So we end up with x equals negative 10 and x equals positive 7. We're back to that same thing. It says positive. So therefore, negative 10 is out. Okay. So it wants to find the 3 consecutive integers. Well, my first is 7. So we know it's going to go 7, 8, 9. And there's my answer. Okay. So that took care of area and consecutive integers. Now we're going to talk a little bit about projection motion. Okay, so if I'm looking at this problem, this one where we're going to use the calculator to help us. Okay, so if it says a soccer ball is kicked from the ground with an initial upward velocity of 90 feet per second, the equation blank gives the height of the ball after t seconds. So that's the height h of the ball after t seconds. We want to find the maximum height. The maximum height, remember, that's a quadratic. That means my shape looks like this. The maximum height is going to be the vertex. I've got to find the vertex. So we punch this into the calculator. We go to y equals. Make sure you can see what I'm writing. Excuse me. So we go to y equals, we clear what's there, and we punch in, use the negative, not the minus, negative 16x. We're going to use x for t. We always use the x button on here. Squared plus 90x. Okay. And I want to know the maximum height. So therefore, I'm now going to do zoom 6. And I can't see anything. So now I'm going to do zoom 3 so I can zoom out. enter. Still can't see anything. Well, I'm wanting to know the maximum height. I'm going to try the table of values, second graph. So if I'm looking at this, I want to know when it starts to repeat. Well, you know, it's not really showing me on the graph. So we might just may have to go back to the finding of the vertex and using the AOS formula to find that vertex. So I'm going to have x equals negative b over 2a. So I'm going to have x equals negative 90 over 2 times negative 16. And that's going to give me negative 90 over negative 32, which is about 2.81. So now I've got to find, sorry, you couldn't see that very well. Now I've got to find the y value. So that's the x of my vertex. So that just found me the x of my vertex. Okay, so we have 2.81, and this is the vertex, which is the seconds. Okay, we're looking for the height, which is the feet. Okay, so in order to find the y value, I'm going to take this number and plug it into the equation. So we're going to have h equals negative 16 times 2.81 squared plus 90 times 2.81 equals, and I can punch all of that into the calculator, just exactly like that. Okay, so we punch it directly into the screen just like that, and we're going to end up with, clear, I can get this to do what I want it to do. So we're going to have negative 16, open parentheses, and I'm going to type it exactly like I see it on my paper that I wrote it, plus 90, open parentheses, 2.81, close parentheses, enter. And we want to round to 2 decimal places. So this is going to be 126.56. And we're talking about feet. There is my final answer because it wants the height. Okay. Now B. This is where we have to think about what it's talking about. It wants to know how many seconds will it take for the ball to reach the ground? Well, what's the height at the ground? That's 0. So therefore, my height is equal to 0, or my y is equal to 0. Excuse me. So I'm going to now plug it in. So I'm going to plug in 0 for the y, or the h in here. So I'm going to have negative 16 t squared plus 90t equals 0. And now we're going to work this one out. Well, the first thing I got to do is, because it's just 2 terms, I'm going to look and see, is there a GCF? And there is, negative 2t. So when I take that out, I'm left with 8t minus 45 equals 0. Then I set each factor equal to 0. Well, when I do negative 2t equals 0, that is going to give me 0. Well, that doesn't make sense to have 0 time for this problem, because it's going to actually have some time that's going to happen for it to fall. So this one doesn't make sense. So now I'm going to have 18 minus 45 equals 0. So to solve this, so I'm now going to have 8t equals 45, divide by 8, and t is approximately or actually it's equal to 5.625 seconds. There's my answer. Okay, one more. All right, here we go. Number 4. A penny is dropped off the Empire State Building, which is 1,250 feet tall. If the penny's pathway can be modeled by this equation, how long would it take the penny to strike a 6-foot tall person? Okay, so it's coming from the top of the building. Okay, and it's dropping and gonna hit this person right here. It's not dropping to the ground. This person is 6 feet tall. Okay, so I want to know when it's at 6 feet. So that's the height, 6. So this means that my height is equal to 6. So I'm going to have negative 16 t squared plus 1250 equals 6. And now we solve. So I'm going to subtract 1250. That gives me negative 16 t squared equals negative 1244. Divide by negative 16, divide by negative 16, and we get t squared equals 77.75. So take the square root of each one, and we end up with t equals positive or negative 8.82. We have a negative amount of time. No, so that one's out. So it's 8.82 seconds. Now, let's talk about another way to be able to work this problem in the calculator. In a sense, right here, this is telling me that in y1, I can put negative 16 t squared plus 1250. In y2, I can put equals 6. And I'm going to show you how this is going to work. Okay, so I'm going to go to the y equals, and I'm going to punch in each one. Okay, so nicely, that's the same. So I'm just going to arrow over, and we got 1250. And in y2, I'm putting 6. Now, I'm going to go to the table of values first. Okay, and I'm going to just look to see. I'm looking to find out if I can find when the y values is not giving it to me. Okay, as easily. So now I'm going to look at the graph. Zoom 6. I can't see anything. Oh, I can see. Oh, you can't see what I'm seeing. So sorry. You go to the y equals and you punch the 2 equations in. I went to the calculate to the graph to see if I could see anything. No, so I'm going to the tape to the graph itself. Okay, notice I see 2 points of intersection. This line is up here because that's the height of the person. I'm looking for these 2. Now this side over here is negative. I don't need the negative amount of time. I need the positive, so I only need this one. So I can do second trace 5, scroll up to get to that red line, and I'm going to scroll over till I get near that point of intersection. I'm going to press enter 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And guess what? Look at that answer. 8.817, which rounds to 8.82. Notice it's the same. You can work it either way. You just have to tell me what you're doing in the calculator. I know this was long. Y'all have a great day. And if you have questions, please make sure you ask. Bye.